Welcome to St. Petersburg in Florida, where Bridgestone presents the Champ Car Series powered by Ford. Conditions near perfect here as the winter blues are finally banished. This the first of the world's international track racing championship series to get underway. And Champ Cars starting us off with a street circuit here in St. Petersburg, and some poetic justice in that. Kart has faced many challenges over the last 2 seasons, with some predicting an end to America's leading road and circuit series. The IRL ovals may have taken some major players, but others have jumped into the breach, and there's no void of talent. Humidity around 50%. It's 18 Celsius, around the mid-60s here. The winter blues, well and truly, have gone. I'm Carlton Kirby. Alongside me is Gareth Rees for what promises to be a challenging and entertaining start to the 2003 Champ Car Series. So a look at some new ideas. Most of all, the Ford Cosworth XFE spec engine. That is what we're going to be on board. It's a control engine, if you like, and the idea is to reduce costs. It can go for around 1,200 miles before you need a new one. Well, we'll just see if it manages to last the ardours of what is the opener here in St. Petersburg. Some new names on board as well. They've been raising some eyebrows with sensational testing and indeed qualification performances. Frenchman Sébastien Bourdais, best amongst them. England's Darren Manning doing well, as is Brazil's Mario Haberfeld. Just 3 of the 9 kart rookies that have been causing, well, sensations here.
Yeah, Bourdais been very impressive in all pre-season testing, and he's looks like the man to, or be one of the men to beat this year. So it should be good to see if he gets on. I think he's going to do well. He,
along with Haberfeld and Montero, coming in from Formula 3000. Some of the testing agents, Lemery, Manning, and of course Bourdais himself from Formula 1. Formula Nissan, Gonzalez and Cavatias, and the Atlantic Series, Slavin and Hunter Ray moving up. Nice for the Americans to get on board. Having a look round this circuit now, Gareth, tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a street circuit, so proximity to the walls is something to be wary of. Don't go tagging the wall with your wheel, because you'll be in trouble. Bumpiness is always an issue with street circuits. Usually you have to sort of back off the dampers a bit to compensate for that. And also often, because it's not used as a track regularly, the surface is never as good as a proper racetrack. So when the climate's quite warm, sometimes the track can break up and cause problems. Corner 10 is where there's been issues in practice so far. I think 1 or 2 cars tagging the wall just there, because it's very quick through there.
Well, Sébastien Bourdais just showing the rest his rear wing. Paul Tracy, nearest man to him, complaining indeed, would you believe, that there were too many reds during qualifying, and that turn 10 was indeed catching a few out. So going through the grid, it's Bourdais and Tracy on row 1, ahead of Fernandez and Patrick Carpentier, Michael Jourdain, Mario Haberfeld, and down to row 4, it's Junqueira and Vasser. Now, of course, we're going to be having a rolling start here for safety reasons, and so these rows, it won't be static, if you like, on your screens. Oriol Servia, one of those, did very, very well in opening qualifying on Friday. Mario Dominguez alongside him on row 5, just faded a little bit, did Servia in second qualification. Darren Manning, nice to see him on board, Gareth.
It is. It's good to have a British driver in the championship, and Darren's a rookie this year, as we pointed out earlier on. They did do 1 race last year, which was the Rockingham race, where he acquitted himself very well, and I think it was that performance then that got him the drive this year, so hope he goes well.
And Roberto Moreno back in, one of the veterans here, and Thiago Montero, one of those who didn't really get a good run, if you like, in qualification, but things can change once we start getting the race setup sorted out. And Roberto Gonzalez, number 11, just dropping straight in, no time for testing, one of the late entries here.
Yeah, I mean, that's very hard. You can't expect to be competitive just turning up and driving with no testing, so he's on a fairly steep learning curve.
Steep indeed, although a near flat surface that we've got here, very close to the airport, and once we get under racing conditions, it'd be nice to see the planes taxiing as these boys beat them for speed. Glorious conditions then, just a very, very light breeze, humidity, as we say, around about 50%, so it should be near perfect, or as near perfect as it could possibly get.
Yeah, it's all set for a good race.
So just completing the warm-up, it's 105 laps, 288.8 kilometres. Speeds, well, maximum 273 kilometers per hour. You're not really going to see that in race conditions, I shouldn't have thought, but somewhere up in the 240s for sure. Pit interval 30 laps. You're allowed to go no more than that before pitting, and that of course they will keep an eye on you. You're not allowed to go 30 laps without coming in. The first window opens between 15 and 30, and there could well be a few early entries into that pit lane, I should think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they'll have different strategies, but they are limited by that pit interval rule, which kind of limits what you can do. You can't go on massive, fill the thing up and go for laps and laps and laps. You are limited to 30 at most.
I do love these statistics. Total shifts, 3,045. I wonder who worked that one out. Well, the course is reasonably wide, as you can see, and we're coming round to green already, and then corners out. We're racing, and Bourdais is underway and gone from Tracy. Tracy charging him down. Well, Tracy had all the complaints in qualifying. Goodness me. The noise is absolutely fabulous down trackside, and the crowds really have turned out. We're on board here with Tracy, looking back at the man in third place for now, but it's Bourdais out in front ahead of the players' man, and a great start for the young Frenchman.
Yeah, I think he'll go well. I mean, he's half a second faster in qualifying, which is a big gap. I think he'll try and get his head down and get away in the early laps. Down one of the long straights, plenty of time to change down, and there has to be they're very, very quickly into the sequence of bends here. We look back down through the field, and a wonderful sight to see kart running and racing once again. It's had so many problems over the last couple of years, but for now it's Sebastien Bourdais, the new boy, the rookie, that just showed them all how to do it in qualifying. Tracy had his complaints, and just look how wide they're managing to run here, and that looks like contact, certainly smoke, as the wheels lock in. We're coming down, hard on the inside, that looks wide. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, just managing to hold on there, and nearly got his nose taken off. Mario Haberfeld just getting it a little bit loose there. It was Junqueira going down the inside, being forced very, very wide, right into the dirty stuff. On board with Bruno Junqueira, the number one, slightly maroon top to his vehicle, and you can just see how much of this track he's using. You can go wide if you want, and that looked like a little wall kiss for the man in front of him there. Yeah, plenty of space there is, but just how much overtaking opportunity remains to be seen. For now, it's Bourdais out in front ahead of this man. And just have a look here, just getting a little bit loose there. Was that Moreno? Fernandez, I think, getting well crossed up. Yes, and a few others as well. Haberfeld getting himself a little bit loose. And just look at this, cutting straight across, almost close, took the nose out, and they're lucky still to be racing. They're so busy racing each other, they weren't watching what they were doing. Another look on board here. Left the brake in so late, trying to come down the inside. Slipped it into reverse. And he's on the dirty stuff as well, offline it's very dirty, the braking isn't as good. Wow, that was tight. Oh dear, oh dear. And just in front of the grandstand as well, they'll be loving this. Settling down. Coming through after, right in the opener as well. Now, it doesn't get much more dangerous than that. So we went to green. Bourdais is out there ahead of Tracy, Fernandez, Carpentier, Jordan. And I can tell you Manning is in 10th place for now, as we're back on board with the number one, Bruno Junqueira, teammate of Sebastien Bourdais. Now, everyone said that Junqueira was perhaps, could have been a shoe-in, as we look at a lock-up just in front of him, could have been a shoe-in for the title this year. Well, we've seen in qualifying that that certainly is not the case. And I have to say that Bourdais has been showing him the way round here. Though, to be fair to Junqueira, in pre-season testing, he did say that Bourdais was very, very fast indeed, and nothing was certain. Yeah, he couldn't really argue with that, could he? I mean, Bourdais set the pace massively, and when you are the favourite, like Junqueira is, to have your teammate suddenly outpace you in all the pre-season tests, it puts the pressure on. Certainly must do, and well, the pressure certainly on him for now. There he is in 7th place behind Oriol Servia, who has also been doing extremely well in testing. Servia, well used to these sort of speeds and these sort of conditions. We're on lap 4 now. Yeah, I mean, Servia's a very good driver. He's been around in Champ Car for a little while, 2 or 3 years, but never really had a regular competitive drive. So hopefully this year he can get some results, because he is a good driver. Certainly is. He's moved up a couple of positions. Currently riding in 6th place ahead of our man here. Bourdais leading, and indeed covering this circuit around a second a lap faster than Tracy. Fernandez just behind, making up the 1-2-3 there. Oop. And that looks like Tagliani. Tagliani, I think, into the tyres on turn 10.
and one of the more unstable parts of the track. We saw that in the warm-up sessions, and that looks like it might be day over.
Trying too hard. He got the sack last year from Players Forsyth team, so trying a bit too hard to prove they made the wrong decision, I think.
And look at that. Well,
just understeer wide and off into the tyres.
The attitude of the front tyres giving that away, and getting into a whole rack full of them. Let's have another look. Plenty of opportunities. Yeah, it is to look at that little lockup. These two really were having a crack at each other. Just look at how much closer does it have to be, and then all of a sudden, wow, almost lost the nose and just locked up the back there. I'm not sure just how much Junqueira knew about that moment.
No, it just they were so wrapped up raising themselves when they were, and also the Brazilian pride as well, both Brazilians. So neither was going to give way. Never
underestimate Brazilian pride. Lap 4, we're under yellow here in St. Petersburg. The pits, well, they are apparently open, though it's not part of the pit window. That's between 15 and 30, but ready to accept anyone who wishes to come on board. And we're here with Paul Tracy, cruising round under the yellow flag. Paul Tracy, well, he sort of had a few blushes, I suppose, with Bourdais' performance. He did lead in second qualifying very, very briefly, but certainly hasn't been able to catch his man so far.
No, I mean, Bourdais at the moment is the man to beat. He's proved that all weekend in every session he's been right up there.
Now the pits are open, and some are being attended to. Is that it's not Serbia? Not quite used to these colours as yet, but getting there.
I think it's one of the Johansson cars, actually.
I think it's Thiago Monteiro who has finally coloured himself up. We'll get confirmation on that in just a moment. Very, very late deals being worked out amongst some of the teams here, and sponsorship colours coming on to the white backgrounds very, very late indeed. Yes, it was indeed Monteiro pitting. Kamatias also gone in and had something of a very long stop, it has to be said, but all sorts of triculation necessary, setup and the rest of it, and those two will be glad to fix anything that was hampering them. They were towards the rear of the field, and still stuck in the wall, Tagliani for now. Nobody hurt, they'll be getting him moved, but that's day over. Shame.
Having said that, I mean, it's not like Formula 1 where if you go off and you stall the engine, you're out. They do let you go back to the pits, repair it and get back out again, even though you might be 5, 6, 7 laps down. You can carry on, so you won't win the race, but you might get good coverage for your sponsors.
It's that American way, isn't it?
Yeah.
All down to
Quite
business.
right
moments on screen. Yes, nice to keep the field as full as possible. So we're under yellow here at St. Petersburg. We will be back in just a few short moments. We'll be back green and racing. It's Champ Cars. Stay with us. The yellow here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and just getting confirmation of how they will restart at the top of your screens there. Having a nightmare is Joel Kamatias. It was Tagliani that went off into the tyre wall at turn 10. Kamatias came into the pits with Monteiro, and he's been back to have another stop, and he's stalled on the exit, had a bit of a panic. He's taken over, well, around 45 seconds to get himself sorted out. We're preparing to get ourselves underway, and indeed just settling still under yellow here. And we've been listening to the radio. The Hertz team have been speaking to Jourdain and telling him to watch Serbia on the restart, because he's been extremely aggressive, they say. He's been driving beautifully, been moving up a couple of places already.
Yeah, he's making good progress. Aggressive is anywhere to be, I think, isn't it? So we're going to be successful, I think, in motor racing.
Certainly the place to be. Wonderful weather here, great conditions, and on board with Bruno Junqueira, one of our onboard cameras here. Still under yellow in St. Petersburg, and the field, well, they've got a taste of it now. Just how settled will their nerves be? Oh, coming around to green, more on that in just a moment. We're underway and racing once again. Bourdais still ahead of Tracy. He's managed to hold him off, and having a look down, Tracy just lighting him up slightly, just a little dab there, and all running very, very wide. Couldn't quite see who that was. Might have been Serbia, actually. On board with Junqueira. Lap 9 and green in St. Petersburg, and overtaking opportunities, I have to say, have not been too obvious. However, Serbia is the man that's picked up a couple of places so far and has been driving very, very punchily, shall we say that?
Yeah, no, I mean, just looking at the circuit, your comment there about overtaking, that's fairly normal for a street circuit. Unfortunately, it doesn't lend itself to good overtaking spots. There's one or two areas in this circuit, but it is going to be a sort of close your eyes and go for the gap and hope it comes off in most cases. Yeah,
and traffic was a problem in qualifying for Tracy, although Sebastian Bourdais looks certainly worth that front spot.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's looking very smooth, very comfortable, and keeping Tracy comfortably at bay there.
Certainly putting a decent amount of space between himself and Tracy, and coming in around that 1 minute and 2 second mark for this track, and 1.85 miles around it is, just to give you an old money again. Fernandez still in touch as well as Carpentier and Jourdain. Serbia in position 6, and just looking back through there, and Darren Manning in the top 10 and comfortably so. That's around where he was qualifying, and so you'd expect that, although he has moved up a couple of places, presumably helped by the bumps and bruises that we've seen so far here. Well, on the radio, Tracy is being spoken to, and they're telling him to keep it nice and smooth and go easy on the box and the tyres.
Obviously pushing too hard too soon, is he, I think?
Well, trying to close down on Bourdais, who seems to have got an absolutely marvellous machine underneath him. I mean, he was stepping into the top drawer, if you like, here, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think, I mean, the difference between Tracy and Bourdais, obviously, is Tracy has a vast experience. He's been in champ cars, Indy cars, kart for quite some time, whereas Bourdais is the rookie. But at the moment, you wouldn't really know the difference to look at from the outside.
And just look at the time difference, almost 3/4 of a second faster than Tracy, and putting some decent space between him as well. We're on the 11th lap here of the opener of the season in St. Petersburg. Bourdais leading Tracy, Fernandez in third place. Scrolling through there for you, top of your screen, as we get once more on board with Junqueira. I mean, favoured son, of course, here, staying with the Champ Car Series when so many decided to up sticks and head off to IRL. And they've been working very, very hard. Pook, the controller of the entire series, has made some changes, cheapened in terms of certainly the amount of money that's needed, but not in terms of entertainment. So we're having a good old race here.
Yeah, I hope that stays the way. And obviously the biggest change over the winter was the engine position, in that there's now a control engine which lasts 1,200 miles, so that keeps the costs right down. Previously, you'd perhaps do a race weekend and need a replacement engine, which pushes the costs up. The flip side is that people like Toyota and the big manufacturers pulled out, and in some cases the teams were actually being paid by the engine manufacturers to be there. So then those teams thought, well, let's go to IRL, where we can continue to get money from engine manufacturers.
And a strange thing as well, because it was always the IRL that were championed, if you like, as the more thrifty, and it seems to have turned itself on its head, and you've got teams coming the other way.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll go that way for a few years, and then perhaps go around again and turn on its head again. It just goes in waves, goes in cycles, doesn't it? But at the moment, I wouldn't say one is stronger than the other. They're just different.
In terms of driver appeal as well, the variation in the tracks and the circuits here that Champ Car has, it's certainly going to be a rude awakening to some of the boys who've been here for some time. Dario Franchitti springs to mind.
That's right. I think oops.
Oh, round we go. 13th lap, and
Levin.
It is indeed. And turn 10 once again. Spun and stalled, and the yellow is going to come out here. A dangerous position on the track, and he's going nowhere, asking for a push, and that's going to turn to yellow very, very quickly indeed.
Just comes down the inside, gets crossed up on them, just loses it on the brakes, loses the back end on the brakes.
May have had a bit of front end damage as well. Looks like he just clipped the wall with the front wing there. Yeah. Have a look again.
It was he was just turned in on him. The car he was overtaking, just enough to make him apply the brakes that extra bit too much and lock the rears, and around he went. I
think it was Mathias again getting involved. Lap 13. Once again, we're under yellow here in Florida, and Sebastian Bourdais could just ease off a little bit in the comfort zone, if you like. Won't be long now before the pit window opens, and it'll be interesting to see who takes advantage. Lap 15 is the first juncture, if you like, where you can come in, and it's the fuel window between 15 and 30. If you work it through, 106 laps here in total for the race. There's 3 compulsory stops then. So just trying to help Mr. Levin off the track. And indeed, it's number 7 car back in again, Thiago Monteiro.
Well, this is something that Bourdais will probably find slightly frustrating. I mean, for those who don't know, he was the Formula 3000 champion last year, International Formula 3000 champion. And you don't tend to get yellow flags like this. You don't get yellow flag periods where the pace car comes out and everyone trails around behind it. If you're leading the race and somebody goes off, then they're off. You know, there's a yellow flag for that section when they're off, but racing continues as normal. So as a European racer going to the States, where they have an awful lot of yellow flag periods, you work hard to build up a gap, and all of a sudden that's slashed to nothing because the yellow car period closes everybody up again. So that's something you'll have to get used to.
Under yellow here, Levin being taken back to the pits. No debris on course. They're just checking it, as you'd expect, but it's likely to go very, very quickly back to green here. We're just coming out and everyone getting in a reasonably tight formation for the off, and I have to say Bourdais has controlled himself beautifully here, looking very, very measured. He's always one of the calmer drivers, isn't he?
Yeah, I think a couple of times he was referred to by the media last year as sort of the new Alain Prost, and Prost is always known for his smooth, measured driving style. I'm never a big fan of the sort of the new this and the new that, but he certainly is a very good driver. And
recognised as such here, they really have taken to him very, very quickly indeed.
Yeah.
And of course, picking up, I say picking up, he of course won it fair and square, but nonetheless some would say picking up the title from Thomas Enger.
He did really,
and one wonders how Enger would have done had he got the same sort of opportunity, although they may not have wanted him. A slightly more aggressive driver, of course.
Yeah, I mean, again, for those who don't know, Bourdais actually finished second on points in the championship, and Thomas Enger was the champion in last year's F3000 series. But Enger failed a drug test, was found to have cannabis in his bloodstream, so they stripped him of the title and awarded it to Bourdais. He'd finished runner-up, so he didn't actually get the most points, but he did get the championship. It's the most important part.
Certainly had featured very prominently throughout, and was close enough to Enger for it to go down right to the wire, the final race of the season, and indeed carried that title, Bourdais, over here to the States, when was beginning to wonder, I'm sure, what his role would have been for next year, thinking about testing perhaps, but he's ended up here in the Champ Car Series and is looking very, very good indeed. Certainly Newman Haas are delighted with his performance right the way through qualifying, and he's a very sensible young man as well. Just is 23 years of age, and remains very, very focused, and does indeed have a very good setup mind. If you're an engineer, you'll know exactly what that means. Manages to translate the feelings of the car back to the engineers to make those changes, and we're about to go green here, holding them up beautifully, as is the prerogative of the man in front. Green, 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 we're underway and racing once again here. Couple of yellow so far, and already that looks like we're going to have the yellow out fairly quickly. Is moving, it's Lemarie, a spin in turn 13, and the pit window has opened up, and you can expect some at least who are not too pleased with their vehicles to come in and perhaps make some modest changes. Jig down the inside there. Wow, that was tight. I think that was Mario Haberfeld.
Yeah.
Really gunning down there, and the yellows are indeed out. And just look at this. Well, it's our first mass pit stop for fuel and tyres of the season, and we'll see how the close season practice has been going. There, the forlorn figure of Lemarie. Just off the racing line, but had to be dragged there, and Lemarie, a spin in turn 14, and the pit window has opened up, and you can expect some at least who are not too pleased with their vehicles to come in and perhaps make some modest changes. Jig down the inside there. Wow, that was tight. I think that was Mario Haberfeld.
Yeah.
Not sure whether they'll manage to get him restarted or not. And coming into the pits, Bourdais stayed out, and that's Tracy jinking in there. Interesting. Bourdais getting himself out of sequence. Now the players, boys, are they both in here? They're very, very close together in terms of their pit boxes. In fact, I think they're neighbouring each other, and they are indeed both in, and that could cause some problems. Interesting. Bourdais stays out and will be counting the laps back. Perhaps he thought that perhaps there's going to be another yellow, and he can take his chance there. Yeah,
possibly. Or I would have thought that as a rookie, it's his first Champ Car race, I would have thought he was reliant on the team to call it for him. And either there was a mistake and he didn't come in when he should have done, or they said no, stay out, and they're calling the shots until he is well equipped and experienced enough to make the decisions for himself.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where Tracy finds himself in the order here. Bourdais out there, Fernandez also copying him, staying there. Tracy in third place, and Bourdais is going to have to put a great deal of space between himself and Tracy if he wants to maintain that spot when the restart comes. He will of course be lighter on fuel, and just having a look at one of the stops here for you. Junqueira setting a 45.9, a slow one indeed, and that's the reason why.
Yeah, that's why they replayed it. The right rear wasn't done properly.
Yeah, I was just looking at the time credited to him, and that Jackman at the back is not going to feel too clever. 45.9 for Junqueira. Tracy incidentally pitted in and out from the lines, 32.691. A dramatic difference of over 13 seconds then, and that frustration could well start to pay, or certainly will be playing on the mind of Junqueira. He'll be kicking himself inside that very small cockpit. Yeah, it's difficult to see whose fault it was, whether it was the chap at the front whose responsibility it is to see that everyone's finished and call him to go, or whether the driver just went before he was told. Under yellow here once again, another one. 3 we've had so far today, and Sébastien Bourdais stayed out, and an interesting decision. I'm not sure whether he just missed the call there.
I think he must have done. I can't see any advantage to staying out at all. It's not like he can get his hammer down and build a gap to where Tracy is. They'll be back with him in no time because they're all in the yellows.
Well, he's got 12 laps if we go to green fairly shortly. Remember, the pit window is the first fuel stop has to be taken between 15 and 30, and each of the cars then have a 30 lap window, if you like, to take their remaining required stops. But for the time being, Bourdais is out there and looking, well, perhaps a little forlorn. We will see when they get going once again. On board with one of the Jerez racing machines, I think it's Roberto Moreno, number 4, just a little bit gluey on the slide screen, and Montero incidentally moved from 7th place to 3rd, and Tracy, I'll just get a reading on him. I've got him coming up as in 4th spot, but yes, indeed, as we go green, Tracy 4th behind Montero as the revs rise once again, and you can expect to see Bourdais putting immediate distance between himself and those who have stopped to refuel, and it's getting very tight in there. Patrick Carpentier on board with him, teammate of Paul Tracy. They both came in together, and you were right, it's looking a little bit snatchy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Bourdais will have the advantage at the moment because his tyres will be much hotter. He's running on the same tyres he had before, whereas the guys who've been in the pitted have new tyres, and unlike Formula 1, they're not allowed to heat their tyres in Champ cars. And you don't get any heat into it just driving around behind the pace car, so this is the first chance they'll have to get some heat into them. So for the first lap or two, Bourdais has the advantage, and of a lighter fuel load as well.
And you can see the shifts going on with the right hand there, and working very hard on the cold tyres here, Paul Tracy, just snatching at it, grabbing it, stabilising the vehicle. Just look how hard he's working, and that's those cold tyres coming into play.
Yeah, I would think so. And also, I mean, you'd be surprised how much difference a heavy fuel load makes compared to what once you get right down to an empty fuel load and suddenly put fuel in. It makes quite a bit of difference to the handling of the car.
Bourdais then out in front, and putting a really decent gap between himself and those pursuing, and it's Montero who is nearest man to him, or one of the chasers. Montero moving up dramatically, and I presume because he hadn't stopped. Although, just checking that for you. Still with Tracy here, though. And chasing his man down very hard indeed. Just how many laps is it going to take for these tyres to get up to full race temperature?
They use quite a hard compound of tyre, so again, like Formula 1, you can go out one lap and they're ready to go. It's two to three laps before they're really up to a good temperature.
And just looking at the time that they are taking to go around here, 1:07 Tracy compared to, what was it, 1:04 for Bourdais. So I mean, crucially I suppose in Bourdais' mind he's putting a gap between himself and the nearest man to him through qualifying, although his focus of course could well be changing.
Trouble is, if he'd pitted he would have kept his place, I'm sure. He might be second or third, but he would have stayed right at the front. If he pits now or in the next sort of 5-6 laps like he'll have to, he'll drop right back.
And those laps are cruelly starting to count down for Sebastian Bourdais. And boy, oh boy, just look at his time now, 1:02.895.
That's what he has to do. He really has to get the hammer down now, because at the moment he holds the advantage with the tyres and the fuel.
He's flying
for a lap or two more.
And you can see that the temperatures are starting to warm up for Tracy. He's starting to clip times down. We're now the top 10 all under the 1:06 mark. And indeed, the top dozen, in fact. And just look at the difference now. The hands are so much calmer. You've got the grip back. Tracy's starting to motor, and we'll be closing down on Bourdais. Lap 21, Bourdais has 9 laps before he has to come in. He's got no choice. He's out there in front, did not pit when just about everybody else did. There were some exceptions, Fernandez and Montero. Tracy, though, is starting to close down, and you can see he's really got the bit between his teeth. Look at this, having a look. Very specific racing line here, may look nice and broad, but so often in these street circuits it's more about endurance, really, isn't it?
It is, and one of the hardest parts is the concentration. You've really got to make sure, because they're usually quite dirty street circuits, they're not used often, and the line, it takes a long time to create over the race weekend, so they're always very offline, they're always very dirty. So the slightest mistake and you're offline, you get on the dirt, and next thing you know you get sucked into the wall.
Now there's an awful lot, I was going to say, an awful lot of hard surfaces if you are caught out.
They are.
Lap 22, 8 to go for Bourdais. I imagine he's going to leave it until the very last one.
I would. He really should leave it until the point where his advantage is no more, and that would be the point where their lap times equal his, because after that it's only going to get worse and worse. His tyres are going off.
Aye. We're on lap 23 and he's offline. That is not a full course yellow, it's a local yellow, and Gonzalez it is. And turn 9, Roberto Gonzalez, one of the ones we were talking about earlier, who had not terribly much testing time, and
none, I think,
effectively just getting straight into a car and going for it. We'll be back when we go green, or we'll be back, we are still green, in just a few moments. Stay with us. Back to the Champ Car World Series. We're under green here. Lap 28, Sebastian Bourdais. Well, time is starting to run out. He's got 2 laps in which to make his fuel window. And Paul Tracy, we're on board with him for the time being. The gap, incidentally, between Bourdais and Tracy has been growing. Light fuel load, of course, on Bourdais, and he wants to put as much space between himself and Tracy, I suppose, in his own mind, his nearest rival. Bourdais, just last lap, was leading Tracy by 17 seconds. He'll be slowing down now in order to come in. He has to by that 30th lap, otherwise he will be punished. Called in for a stop-go as well as having to make his official stop. He leads Fernandez by around 9 seconds. Montero in 3rd place, Tracy in 4th, but a slight error, we think, by Bourdais. Maybe he thought there was going to be some other shenanigans going on. We've had plenty of yellows here today, 3 in all. The last one wasn't called for Gonzalez into the tyres on turn 9, was off the racing line. We stayed green here in St. Petersburg, Florida. Gorgeous weather and great crowds turning up to witness this, and it's always been part of Champ Car racing that it's been extremely popular. They go to the cities and they just absolutely... I was just wondering what was coming up there. I was waiting for a call in for our leader Bourdais as we watch Paul Tracy here, voted #1 driver in the fans' minds. A man, of course, who many think should have been declared winner of the Indy 500 last year. And fastest lap of the race for Sébastien Bourdais, 1:01.825, almost a qualification time, in fact beating many qualification times. He did come in under 1:01 for his best spots, which put him on pole at the beginning of this race, and Bourdais is now slowing as he starts to approach, but just look how fast that these boys are going. Tracy posting at a 1:04.28.4.
The frustrating thing for Tracy is he can go much quicker. You can see he's bottled up behind Montero.
Jammed for now, and here is a modestly forlorn figure. Let's just leave it at that. Sébastien Bourdais coming in. He'll be looking for a fast stop so that he can get away smartish, and we'll see what position he is when he comes out of here. He's got a great team on board though, and very polished.
Yeah, I mean they're the reigning champions at the moment, Newman House Racing, so they know what it's all about.
Just clocking him out here, and the clock stopping at 34.481 seconds for Bourdais. Not the quickest, but for presumably just getting a nice fat fuel load to carry him beyond everyone else when they stop, and then just presumably hope for a yellow and get out there. And just look at this, the players team just going one past the other, round the other. And that was Bourdais back on track, and it was as if Paul Tracy and Patrick Carpentier just said, "See ya."
Yeah, well, again, that's the Bourdais coming out the pits on cold tyres, and just caught slightly unawares by both the players' cars.
And just ignore the graphic for the time being, which has Bourdais in the lead. That will certainly unwind once they get themselves sorted out. And a little jink down the inside there, and it just shows there are overtaking opportunities when you find them, but this is Bourdais that's going backwards effectively, and you can see just how twitchy his car is, fighting to maintain some sort of position here. Chased down, I think, by the 7 car once again. Lap 32 then, the leader's just passing that. On more smoke there. Montero it is that's out in front ahead of Tracy, and it looks very uncomfortable for Sébastien.
Yeah, it's all part of the steep learning curve, I think, coming out mid-race with freezing cold tyres on.
Goodness gracious, well, it's not something he's used to.
No, he's going to have to learn to do better than this. But that's part of the disadvantage of getting out of sync on your pit stops. You know, if you come out the pits with everybody else is on brand new rubber, then you're all up against the same thing. But when everyone else up there is on good hot tyres, and you're not, you're on ice and they're not. You know, it's tough.
Yeah, and he's having some problem with Haberfeld behind him. We're on board with Jimmy Vasser here. Very convenient that they put his name on there.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, mates. Round they come through the little series of curves there, and just keep your eye on the top of your screen to find out where Bourdais finds himself. Hunter Ray currently running there reasonably well, and just goodness gracious, they can choose any number of lines coming in, but it's suddenly concertinas, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a good wide entry, but it now is right down on the exit, so makes for a good overtaking spot actually.
Well, we're staying with Sébastien Bourdais as Montero leading Tracy for the time being, seeing the speeds come through there, and all around the mid-160s. Starting to slow down to get to Bourdais, 1:52, and that is a reasonable gap, lap by lap.
Whoops. This is the replay of Bourdais coming out the pits in front of Tracy.
Goodness gracious, and I imagine, oh dear, I imagine that stirred Tracy somewhat. His hands were busy occupied, otherwise there may well have been a few gestures. Got it through, held it beautifully, kept his nerve, and just powered through that very, very dicey situation. Montero leading Tracy, who's just posted 1:03.579. And just having a look here, just right next to the airport there, you see the planes just taxiing away as the cars spirit past them. Paul Tracy, just getting a little bit twitchy there as well. He's determined to reclaim this lead here. very accomplished and one of the looser drivers, shall we say, on the circuit. Certainly known to be reasonably aggressive, and indeed before, or I should say just after second qualification, before the race, Bourdais was asked whether he was worried that Tracy, known to be moderately aggressive. Oh, that looks like trouble at the back, and that's Bourdais. He's got a flat.
Looks like he snagged the wall somewhere, doesn't it?
Oh dear, dear. Oh, more on what Bourdais said in just a moment. Let's have a look at this. He's got to come back in, and the day's go. Oh, goodness gracious!
Not intentional, but he's only half in control of that.
He is, and hand gestures from behind, but absolutely nothing that he can do about it.
No.
I think that's Adrian Fernandez behind him.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Who is out of sorts. Wants Bourdais to pull over, and Bourdais
punctured left.
Goodness gracious! Well, that is effectively the challenge over for Bourdais. He'd not left himself the best of options, if you like, but now most definitely, and indeed. On some of the radio pickup, they're saying, look, let's just treat it as experience.
Yeah, that's quite right.
Absolutely.
There's no point giving him a hard time about it. It's his first champ car race, so just learn from it. He's been pretty impressive, isn't it? I think that's
certainly has, and it's engined off as well.
You see the damage on the rim there. He's actually clouded the wall quite hard by the look of it.
And it'll be suspension damage to
possibly
boot,
yeah,
I imagine.
Yeah, it's quite hard hit by the look of it.
Having a very, very close look. Didn't actually see where he made contact with the wall. I think we were with Tracy at the time. They, of course, out there and still racing. And while we're watching there, Tracy has gone into the lead. Tracy is our leader. Goodness gracious, look at that.
It's a big hit. It's actually broken the rim.
Shards of metal that could well have been. It looks like they managed to hold on to it. And yep, confirmation for you. Tracy leading Carpentier now. Montero down into third place, ahead of Jourdain. And Serbia, he's doing awfully well, up to fifth place, having been around the 8 mark earlier on. Junqueira languishing in 10th spot, ahead of Hunter Ray. Darren Manning at number 12 and posting a 105. Very, very decent, solid performance by Darren Manning.
Yeah, well, that's good. Let's hope he can keep it there.
As for Bourdais, well, he is indeed staying in the pits for the time being.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of suspension damage they're trying to assess before they say it's safe to send him out again. Yeah,
the laps are... if he came out now, he's going to be well, fair few down. I can't see him coming out lighter than 5 laps down, and that's something of a shame for Bourdais, who an awful lot was expected, I can tell you, particularly amongst our French colleagues. They said that he'd shocked everyone in qualification. Well, we knew that certainly, and just nearly got very dicey there. Goodness gracious. Well, we're going to take a break, and we will be back at St. Petersburg in just a few moments' time. Bourdais having his own little break for the time being as the laps tick down. His race effectively over. He will be coming back out, though. Stay with us, back in a few moments. Welcome back. We're here at St. Petersburg, just having a look at Adrian Fernandez, who got very, very close indeed to Sébastien Bourdais, who punctured and is having all sorts of bother in the pits. Still in there as we take a check on our running order, and it's Tracy still out there in front of Carpentier, Montero, Jourdain and Serbia. And just look how wide they're taking it now, using absolutely all of this circuit. Adrian Fernandez is posting a 1:02, nice and handy. Aaron Manning, if you're interested, around 25 seconds down off the leading pace, in the field really starting to string out now. Plenty of space between the main protagonists. Still waiting for Bourdais, still in the pits, I can tell you. And that's bad news, particularly for those of us who really would have liked to have seen a rookie challenging well here. So times at the line, and you can see that Tracy has got a good 2.4 seconds advance on his pursuers, and it's looking rather healthy for Mr. Tracy. And just a wee passing manoeuvre there. Montero definitely, yes. Now it's just a case of maintaining his focus.
Him and Bourdais that have been competitive, because the whole weekend there's been those two sort of trading times. So I think as long as he keeps his head down and keeps it all together, it should be fairly comfortable.
Having a few mic problems there with Mr. Rees sitting next to me here for the opening of the season here in St. Petersburg. Thankfully, we've got his dulcet tones back with us. Paul Tracy, currently our leader, having started in second place. Now, we were just saying about Bourdais. He was asked at a press conference after second qualification where he'd nailed that pole and, of course, picked up a point because of it. They said, what about this start? You're afraid of Paul Tracy being known as an aggressive driver? And he said, look, I'm just going to get my launch absolutely right. He said, I've got a great team, a great car, and I'm just not going to think about it. But I can tell you, Paul Tracy had a wry old grin on his face as he was sitting next to him in that press conference, and everybody knew that he was going to give it full welly. As it turned out, Bourdais did get a great start, didn't he? And it's a shame the way it panned out for him.
Again, it's difficult. That's his first ever rolling start. Usually in Europe he's used to grid starts. So to come to America and get a rolling start and to do such a good one for his first effort was pretty good. But yeah, I think he should have been worried about Tracy, because Tracy's known for sticking his nose in where it's not always welcome or appropriate.
Well, it's one of the things that makes Paul Tracy one of the great catches, if you like, of Champ Car. And what a great thing it was that he decided to stay with this series and not move off with some of the other big names.
Yeah, I think as we discussed before the race went on air, it was to do with his dislike of ovals. I think, wasn't he? He much prefers road courses and street courses as against ovals, and IRL is purely oval based, which again we touched upon earlier, which for the drivers must get pretty tedious. It's nice to have some variety.
Well, variety, the spice of life. And
Manning.
We are indeed sponsored by the Royal Automobile Club, and nice to see that British sponsors getting carried over the water there.
It is. It's unusual. It is nice to see.
Sadly unusual these days for Brit drivers to get a decent amount of funding, but Darren certainly has it, and described by Chris Pook as one of those stars in the firmament, if you like. And they've certainly got a good mix of people from around the world here. It's a truly international series, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's all continents bar Australia, I think, just about. It's pretty impressive. And a mixture of experience. You've got people like Paul Tracy, who've been around quite some time, and guys from like Darren from Europe and Formula 3000, who are on the up and up.
Just nice to see his handwork. Talk us through this as we go around with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously, like I said before, part of the big issue on street circuits is A, the dirt, and B, the bumps. And you can see he's getting regularly crossed up. He's got 800 horsepower on his right foot, and no traction control like Formula 1. So you be very gentle with the throttle, and that's easier said than done when you're being shaken around. And you really are being shaken around because there's minimal suspension of movement. And if you go over the bump at the wrong time, it can either throw your foot off the accelerator or throw it onto the accelerator much more than you want. So it is hard work.
Hard work indeed, and some of the buffeting that they just get to the head, indeed, not only from the side-to-side movement and the track itself, but just the air flowing over the bodywork of these cars. Yeah,
I mean, the aerodynamics are designed so that that's minimalised, and the driver doesn't tend to feel an awful lot, actually, although it looks like his head's being banged around quite a bit. You'd be surprised actually being sat where they're sat, and actually the brain compensates, the eye and brain compensate for all of that and screen out too much of that sort of nonsense, and you can see we're going quite comfortably. But to a driver, a street circuit is always presents more of a challenge on that front than a normal circuit because it is bumpy.
Well, having a few pickup problems on our exterior mics here as we just watch the number 9 car drifting through. Oriol Serbia's doing well as well. He's constantly staying in the hunt there and harrying his way around this circuit. And I can tell you, Sébastien Bourdais is still in the pits. Well, goodness me, that's we're timing him, and he's heading for the 8-minute mark, which is something of a shame because that means will basically translate to around 8 laps, I have to say. It's around a minute a lap around this 1.85 mile circuit, and that's a shame. Well, let's just hope he gets out. He certainly will be coming back out fairly shortly. As once again our old friend Thiago Monteiro gets followed round. I think he's the Portuguese got an uncle on the film crew. A little puff of smoke there, and Monteiro coming in to the pits, pitting from third place actually, I have to say. Rather unkind I was to him. And we'll see what sort of stop he gets here. Monteiro, part of the Fittipaldi outfit, very late getting their car sorted out here, and wiping his own visor there. Yeah, if you're not going to do it, boys, I'll do it myself. Yeah. So the 7 car Monteiro coming out, 35.448 was his pit stop. And I have to tell you that Tracy is going to come round for his, going to come round for his next pit stop, and he certainly needs some tyres by the looks of that. He's got a little bit of a drift going on there.
Yeah, it was nicely controlled, wasn't it? It wasn't sort of, well, that won't help either. It wasn't crossed up, it was a nice sort of four-wheel drift, which is a sign the car is handling nicely.
Followed by a nice smoked kipper just coming into that one, yes. So, a chance then for us to take once again another little break. No, we're not going to a break. It's the players' cars that are going to lead into the pits, I should imagine. And the times from the telemetry, he's getting very ragged. He wants it now, doesn't he? He came in early when that pit window opened, around the 15 mark. Can't remember precisely, but nonetheless, his laps are running out. You've got a 30-lap window before you have to come in once again. And believe me, they are in there and counting, these boys, aren't they? The officials.
Absolutely, it's well monitored.
Nobody gets away with anything. On board with Bruno Junqueira. Teammate of Sebastian Bourdais, slightly different colour scheme to his machine.
He's been disappointing really so far. He's running sort of midfield.
Perhaps he had the stuffing knocked out of him by Bourdais' performance in qualification. I mean, you said firstly you want to beat your teammate, don't you? And especially when it's a new boy.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was a second slower, almost exactly 1 second slower than Bourdais.
Remarkable.
Which is on a 1 minute lap. That's a long time. A second is a big gap. So maybe his head is down a little bit.
Perhaps. On board with Roberto Moreno. No, that's not Roberto Moreno's dad. It is indeed Roberto Moreno. He was walking around the pit area right the way through last season, just trying to get a ride, and thankfully he did get one.
He's twice Bourdais' age, isn't he? He's 44 and Bourdais 23.
44 years of age, so it could indeed be Bourdais' dad. Though he is in here racing and racing competitively, and looking to the pits, and already coming in Tracy and indeed Carpentier. Interesting that they're coming in together, and that there's no kind of strategy in terms of spacing them out, which you see so often on the ovals. Perhaps not so important here, but very tight, these pit boxes, and they're having to work hard. Indeed, work hard to get past our cameras. Apologies for that. I think it was a helmet cam actually.
Yeah.
So here is Oriol Servia. Jourdain also in, a whole gamut there for you to have a look at. Lead 9 cars all coming in here. Tracy, a 33.707, reasonably tight, not the fastest we've seen today. And continuing to shuffle out, and they've got to be desperately careful. Ooh, goodness gracious, that was very close, and into a little bit of dirt there, I think. But as you say, the tyre's not been preheated, so perhaps something of an advantage. And the little bit of movement there, Junqueira moving up, and look at this, very tight down on the inside of the wall, and that is Junqueira once again.
And Haberfeld, the two Brazilians again.
Yeah, having a rare old crack at each other. Was it those two that nearly got into each other there, just on the exit?
Yeah.
And just then, as they were coming out there?
Yep.
Goodness gracious.
Determined to have each other off, aren't they?
Well, they certainly are, and I like the way you phrased that. Could have made a mistake. Anyway, they didn't, thankfully. And Bruno Junqueira on board with him, looking back at Mario Haberfeld, and the experience against the rookie, and Haberfeld will be once again determined to make his mark. Leading rookie, I think he is for the time being. Tracy, Carpentier, Jourdain, Dominguez and Moreno. Remember, some of these are still to pit. Junqueira there in 6th place. And that will be why they were so twitchy coming out there. They really were determined to get that track position on the exit there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dear oh dear, it's a 32 car of Patrick Carpentier, and perhaps just a little bit over enthusiastic. We're on lap 48 here, and the 32 is into the tyre wall. Well, that's a shame.
Probably overdoing it on cold tyres. Would need to see a replay ready to be
quite possibly. Sure. Yeah, we will get a replay for you in just a moment. But
beating the steering wheel in frustration.
Yes, taking it out. Is it about a poor workman blames his tools? Something. I believe that's the expression. Well, into the wall, nose in, and well, we'll see whether he manages to restart. And here comes our replay, and
yeah. He's just gone a bit too quick.
Oops.
Locked up and into the tyres.
All his own work, as they say. Turn 8. Carpentier brings out yet another yellow here at St. Petersburg. And while that's been going on, that little tussle we saw earlier, look at this. When are these boys going to just ease off? That was Junqueira moving through and showing Haberfeld perhaps who was boss, but Haberfeld didn't like it. We're under yellow at St. Petersburg, lap 49. Carpentier has pitted along with his teammate Tracy, and then just got a little bit wild. The heavy fuel load perhaps playing its part, as you mentioned earlier. Cold tyres as well, and he just went straight on.
Yeah, no, it was a cold tyres, just trying to push too hard too soon, really.
Well, about to come round and go to green, looking at Oriol Servia, who really has been racing beautifully here. Under yellow in St. Petersburg, and time for a quick glass of water to rest my throat. We will be back with you in just a few short moments, and we will be racing once again. Stay with us, we'll be back after these messages. You join us as we head for green here. Just a look at the damage to the front wing of Carpentier's machine. He's limping his way back to the pits, having had a push start. Stalled going into the tyre wall on turn 9, coming out with a very heavy fuel load and cold tyres. Oriol Servia, he's back in and starting to experience some problems. Mechanical difficulties for him on lap 51. And the back cowling off and looks serious. That's sad.
Yeah, he was going well. He was in the top 6 kind of area, but Carpentier is even worse. I mean, somebody of his experience, running in a good position, 2nd place, to just throw it in the tyres is a rap on the knuckles from his team, I think.
Yeah, let's have a look. They're getting the nose section ready to change here as well. So it's tyres, fuel, and working very, very quickly. All fingers and thumbs. A tight area, this. They're ready with a new one. Et voila, sir. None of this ready next Wednesday. Give us a call, and a possibility. The clock's still running down on them, but very, very smart work here from another very experienced team.
Yeah, it's a fairly straightforward changeover.
Clips in, tightened up, bolted, and away. And 54.85 seconds for a new nose section, tyres and fuel. Not bad. We'll see how he progresses from now, but not going to be happy. Coming round, going to green. We've got the flag, and we're racing once again here at St. Petersburg. And Servia has been called back in yet again, and that's sad. On the drift, mid-pack, as was Barry Haberfeld. Looked like he lost a couple of places there on the restart. And interesting, we're on board here with the 4-car, Roberto Moreno, and once again, he losing out a couple of spots. And Paul Tracy is on the radio and reporting problems with grip. Now, interesting, perhaps it was what was suffered by his teammate as well.
Yeah, I mean, if there might be some water or oil down on the circuit slightly somewhere.
Well, they are saying that there is a little bit of fluid out there.
Yeah.
Goodness only knows where that's come from, but it's around turn 9, so perhaps Carpentier, although it was turn 8 I think he was into.
Yeah, it might have been Holland. It might have been something on the track which caused him to go off, but no one else did. So.
Yeah, that's true. So for the time being, it's the number 3 car, Paul Tracy, as we look down through the field, and that looks like our friend once again picking his way through. Mario Haberfeld getting his own back on a few. Oh, goodness gracious, again that turn has caught out a few, hasn't it? And is that Jimmy Vasser just drifting wide there? There's Ryan. Yes.
That's Hunter Ray,
Ryan Hunter-Ray, the American in the all-American American Spirit Team Johansson outfit. And once again, that after that very, very high-speed straight, just coming into that right-hander, and a couple of different lines being taken, and just one racing line exit. And
oh yeah, encourages people to be brave, that's for sure. It's and it is the main overtaking place on the circuit, so you're going to see incidents there.
Probably explains why that particular grandstand is standing room only. I think word has got out. As you can see, the crowds here really have packed this circuit, and it's a credit to the organisers.
It is, and important for them as well. I think the competition from IRL now, it's important they're seen to be putting the crowds in.
Getting off to a running start here, and nobody more popular to be out in front than Paul Tracy, although he is apparently having some grip problems. Let's watch him go around here. Oh, tight down the inside, and beautifully done. That's Mario Haberfeld once again. He's really starting to get the bit between his teeth. He's enjoying himself. Are some of the drivers getting into a little bit of traffic.
Some back markers, aren't there?
Yeah, Thiago Montero, and on board with Jimmy Vasser here. Jimmy Vasser, one of the stages, if you like. Been around for some time, but great competitor nonetheless.
Yeah, he's a former champion, isn't he?
He is, way back in '96, won it with Ganassi Racing. Well, it's now a question of just getting your endurance head on, particularly for those who are in something of a comfort zone. You can't start to relax at all. Still on board with Jimmy Vasser here, and Darren Manning's moved up to moving up. He's in 10th place now.
Yeah, he's driven a steady race. He's kept out of trouble and just gathering experience, really, which is the best thing to do.
Well, the temperatures here have been absolutely perfect, around the 60s in old money, which is a temperature I can kind of understand. Sort of Anglo-Saxon shirt sleeves, sort of French duffel coat, if you get my drift. On board with Darren. And looked like a bit of a high-speed replay, that. So, somehow, I don't know what we were supposed to be looking at, but almost double time there. Looked impressive, though. Just how important is it for Darren to make his mark early on here? Is he? I mean, realistically, he's going to want a nice, solid performance here, not make too many mistakes, and just bring the thing home, really, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not party to the terms of his contract with the team. I mean, some contracts are more concrete than others. It may be that he doesn't perform, they can get rid of him, or you might have a season-long deal, in which case the pressure is off slightly more. He can relax and let his talent show.
Well, it does show you. We were just looking there, actually. The Herds competition, they were quite happy to swap places. You're not sure, though, are you, where team orders come into this? No. Although it has to be said that Champ Car really is not known for its team orders.
No,
you do get them.
Other series are, shall we say? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. In fact, American Racing, quite often they carry their own sponsors, and as a result, they are well and truly two racing entities within the same team.
Yeah. Even those that have share sponsors. I think last year Paul Tracy was Dario Franchitti's teammate, and they came together on more than one occasion.
Indeed.
But no, it's important Darren, keeps it on the track. I think that's first and foremost.
And he's moved up a couple of places.
Yeah.
I can tell you, he's up to 8th now. Darren, there's almost more contact there. I'll tell you what, if you're buying a ticket next year, that's your spot.
Yeah, definitely.
Fabulous stuff echoing round this area here, St. Petersburg. And just still with the Herders Racing. They really have been having a crack at each other, though they seem to have got something of a gap between themselves for the time being. Moreno and Dominguez, not perhaps names that might immediately spring to mind. A lot of mixed ability, nonetheless, within the field.
There is, yeah. I think the top 2/3 are looked upon as being quality drivers, but it does have its fair share of drivers who bring along sponsorship and pay for their drive, who perhaps are not what you would term top-class drivers.
That's for Paul Tracy. He said after qualification, he was asked really what he thought about the dilution of the field, if you like, those top drivers who have sadly left the series. And he said, up there, out in front, the quality is still there, and he's having to race just as hard.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
That's nice to hear.
But then, the only thing you lose is that little bit of depth. But I don't think that's any major thing. You wouldn't really notice that, really.
Well, radio traffic, just been monitoring it, and the MyJack team's been speaking to Haberfeld, and he's apparently had 2 blocking warnings. Yeah,
he does seem to be a little bit wild this afternoon. Just need to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of warnings then. I'm not quite sure how many you're allowed before they bring you in. I think that's down to the organisers, but nonetheless he's under a couple of warnings, and they've told him to just be a little bit careful. They said you're doing fine, as you would say to a rookie, but nonetheless he's just perhaps being a little bit brutal when it comes to people trying to pass him.
Just tone it down slightly, I think.
Probably a complaint from Bruno Junqueira, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And as if by magic, we're on board after 59 laps of 106 scheduled here. Can't see weather hampering any of that. Absolutely beautiful clear skies here in Florida. And way beyond the halfway stage now. Coming up to lap 60 and on board with Bruno Junqueira. And he's had his work cut out today, and indeed right the way through qualification, not least because of Mr. Mario Haberfeld, his fellow countryman. A lot of Brazilians watching this. It's extremely popular, not only globally, of course, but particularly in the Americas, where they kind of regard it as their home international series.
They do. A lot of the reason for that is it's on the same kind of time zone, whereas European F1 races aren't. They have to stay up and watch them at odd hours of the day, or night sometimes. Whereas the American series are on their time zone, so they're generally quite popular in South America. And
indeed, the Brazilians really are flag flyers when it comes to motorsports, just the Italians, if you like, of that particular continent.
Yeah, I mean, there's traditionally a good number of Brazilians competing in the States, right back from the early days of the Fittipaldis. The people like Junqueira in the present day.
Tracy still leading Jourdain. Junqueira in 3rd place, and he's done well to pick his way back up from his earlier setbacks in this race.
Yeah, I mean he's sort of clawing his way up into the sort of top 6, top 5, and just showing a bit of quality and showing the experience he has. But still, he'd be disappointed that he's been outshone by his teammate this weekend. Albeit his teammate isn't there to pester him now.
Yes, perhaps just wanting to now spurred on to get that podium spot, which is obviously his target now. Can't see anyone catching Paul Tracy for the time being. He's absolutely right on the line, and even when he was complaining about a lack of adhesion, still seemed to be managing to carry this one through beautifully.
But yeah, I mean, speaking as a former driver, I know what it's like when you're in a battle with a quick teammate. Particularly early in the season, like now, it's important to sort of stamp your mark on the team and on the series. And he will be disappointed to have started on the back foot to a teammate, particularly a rookie teammate. It doesn't put you in a good light. So I'm sure we'll be all guns blazing for the next round in Monterey.
Still on board with Bruno Junqueira. I can tell you, Oriol Servia has been back to the pits again. Still haven't managed to sort out his mechanical problems. Paul Tracy still just showing everyone the way for the time being. And Newman Haas on the radio and speaking to Junqueira and asking him to conserve fuel.
Yeah. I mean, he's pushing pretty hard. You can see he is on it. But obviously they can only stop in certain pit stop windows. So
yeah,
if they've measured out the right amount of fuel for a certain amount of laps, and his pace is putting that in jeopardy, he's got to back off a little bit.
Yeah, well, they want a quick stop, obviously, next time around. Maybe that's it. Slightly lighter fuel load. We shall wait and see. It will effectively be his last stop next time around, and so it could be exactly what you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 62 laps deep in this one. Just Paul Tracy just going over the line to start us up on 63, and some of the tyres just starting to let go a bit here.
Yeah.
Smoke.
Yeah, well, it's to be expected towards the end of each sort of individual stint. As your tyres wear down the grip, you lose grip, and you would notice it in cornering speed and under braking as well.
Few gremlins in the sound circuit here, but Paul Tracy still leads Jourdain by 6.64 of a second. Junqueira in third place, and we are under yellow, or about to be. That is a very dangerous spot. Goodness gracious, look at that. That was that Carpentier coming around there?
Was it Tracy?
Goodness gracious, I think it was. There comes Carpentier, and that is a nasty little spot. Hunter Ray,
again,
it is, turn 10 once again. And we knew it was going to be a difficult little spot, and so it turned out to be. They bounced those tyres right off the wall.
I'd like to see a replay of Tracy's avoiding action from the in-car camera.
Yes, and indeed we would have, of course, to turn his mic down a little bit. What on earth is that? I think he probably said.
Like that,
Well, where the tech boys are just spooling back the tape, but apparently a braking error for Hunter Ray going into the wall, and it certainly looks like he got it a little bit loose, and some heavy damage there for the All-American boy.
Yeah, I think he's the new American hope, isn't he? He's been quite highly touted. He's been around in the sort of junior formula the last couple of years.
Yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay, part of the All-American outfit, along with Jimmy Vasser. And I think you've got your wish here. Let's have a look. Here's the incident. And
yeah, it's just going in too quick, was run wide.
Just taking it wide, smoke the tyres, and perhaps towards the end of their life here. And no life left in this machine for this particular day. Thankfully, the little protective shell that he's sitting within did its job, and he's perfectly okay. And Servia coming back out from the pits. We're under yellow once again here at St. Petersburg, and once again a few more blushes. This time it's our friend Ryan Hunter-Reay, part of the American Spirit Team Johansson. Bit of a mouthful. We will be back and racing once again here in Florida in just a few moments. Do stay with us. The yellow here at St. Petersburg, and they've been on the radio to our leader, Paul Tracy, and he's going to have to pit fairly shortly. They're asking him to build up a good lead, as we're just watching Dominguez. Asking him to get a good lead because he's got to pit in the next 10.
Yep, get the hammer down. Hope
So
there's no yellows.
He wants a nice runaway here. As we go green, just watch Paul Tracy. You don't need to show him a green flag very long. He has to put a decent interval between himself and the chasers, because the entire field is basically concertinaed. He's got to stop within 10, and they've said, go for it, my friend, and that's exactly what he's doing. Patrick Lemery there, just moving a little bit back. And Darren Manning on board with him. Tracy was going for it. You see the slidey hand coming out of that.
Yeah. No, you have to. That's what he's got to really get the hammer down and really push hard. Be like 10 qualifying laps coming up. just get right on it.
Well, let's just watch and enjoy. We're looking back from Darren Manning's vehicle for the time being. On board with him, and switching to the forecar of Moreno, and that is a spinner, and that is going to be, is it?
Adrian Fernandez, isn't it?
We're still on the green. He's caught it, and he's underway again. Well held, and kept us racing, which is what we want to see. Well, Fernandez reporting that something's broken at the rear, and he's gonna pit.
Cause or effect?
Your guess is as good as mine. He's the car.
Let's see the replay.
He said. Round they come then, and Paul Tracy really is flooring it for the time being. I'm just hoping that we can get back to him fairly shortly.
Be nice to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Bruno Junqueira, I think we're on board with here by the look of his maroon top.
Haberfeld again behind him.
Yep, chasing him down. Been a rare old battle between those two throughout this day. It just seems when they get to the more technical parts that it's Junqueira that manages to put some space between himself and his pursuer.
Yeah, I prefer to see his in-car shots of Tracy at the moment.
Yeah, that's where we want to be.
See him pushing hard.
Well, accordingly, he has around 7 to go before he has to come in. We're going to get a little replay here. That's Bourdais going through, back out there. Oh, and that's the smack.
That's the
and
the thing at the back braking. Seems hit by somebody else.
Exactly, something broken at the back. He may not. I was going to say something silly there. I'm not even going to say it. No. On board with Tracy at last. Look at this. Let's have a look at him go. The man is flying, and he's got to come in before 77, according to his crew. And they want him to put as much space between himself and the rest as he possibly can. You don't have to ask a driver, do you, to go for it?
No, but I mean, he obviously requires help from the pits to just to give him a bit of guidance on helping to read the race. I mean, obviously you can read the race to a certain degree in the car, but you're not always aware of what's going on with other drivers, what sort of strategy they might be on, whether they're suffering with problems. You know, he might want to get his head down and go for it. And as we had earlier on, Junqueira was told to back off because of fuel, or it could be for other reasons. It might be no need to push. It might be that the cars behind have got certain issues with fuel of their own or with mechanical problems. So there's no point in pushing if you don't need to. But in this case, he needs to push, and he might not necessarily be aware of that. So it's, get on the radio and tell him to push, push, push.
And if you look at the times towards the back end of the top 10, they're starting to drift out to the 1:08, 1:09. Fernandez is in the pits for the time being, and we're on board with Paul Tracy here, and he's absolutely flooring it. Look at that. Just look how close he's getting into each of these little series, carrying the drift beautifully. And the gap on Jourdain, 3.78 seconds, and Jourdain keeping up with him. But a healthy gap between the rest of the middle of the pack here. And as we start to wind through and get some of those, there were several laps down. Incidentally, Bourdais' new target is to get in the points, which extend down to, I think, it's 12.
Yeah.
Currently just 3 short of that. Also, Paul Tracy then will be heading in, as we're just having a look at Patrick Carpentier. New nose and all. On board here with Tracy, and any moment now he's going to get the word, and of course he will have to slow down considerably, probably losing around between 6 and 8 seconds, I'd have said, on the slowdown as he comes in. Not at that point yet though, and still absolutely thrashing this one.
Quite smooth though. I mean, commented earlier how he's a bit ragged. It doesn't look out of control. It all looks quite controlled and smooth and sensible.
Well, must be absolutely delighted with the way that this race has panned out for him. You always suspected that he would have certainly had a go at Bourdais out in front of him, and perhaps that's the moment that we've sadly been denied here. It would have been great to see. He's getting a bit of breakup on board, and that's sad as well, because that means we're going to have to pull away from him just as he was coming to that moment where he's going to have to pit. Within the next 2 or 3 laps, certainly. Well, if you can just hold on, you're going to get the final pit sequence for an awful lot, we're hearing. A great deal will suddenly be in the zone, if you like. Within the next 2 laps, indeed, they'll be able to go on and finish. 76, yes, of course.
Yes, and the most important pit stop coming up. 106
laps is the race duration, and a maximum of 30 laps is the window. So, as we hit 76 laps, that is when they'll be coming in and tanking up for the final push home. And they will have been learning an awful lot throughout this race about just how much fuel they need to get on board.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a new circuit. Oops, wheel banging session there.
That was, I think that was Carpentier. Could well have been Tracy, though. Who knows?
Difficult to see, isn't it?
Yeah, we are into traffic here. There's plenty of lapped vehicles, and there goes John Kerr, the #1 car. And yes, indeed, how nice to see a heat haze at this time of the year. Fantastic stuff. So the pits preparing to open themselves up for what will be something of a rush, I imagine. Just hearing the tyres scrubbing and screeching there. Tracy's just posted a 1:03.218 ahead of Jourdain. Junqueira in 3rd place ahead of Haberfeld, Vasser. Darren Manning in 6th. Great run for him, and let's just hope he gets a decent pit stop.
Yeah, that would be impressive. If he got top 6 position, that would be very impressive.
Well, the calls are starting to go out on the radio, and in short order they're going to be coming in, you can be sure. Tracy is slowing, not on the last time around, 1:02.972, putting in one last flyer, but has been called and will be joining us in the pits very, very shortly. Tracy already in then, and being joined by his fellow leaders. Tracy, Jourdain, John Kerr already in. Lap 77, they can make it all the way and just put an extra one in the bank there. Well, you know that these vehicles do 2 miles to the gallon. That is a healthy stop, to say the very least. You've got to do 29 laps, you work it out. It's a heavy fuel load going in nice and tidily. Tracy out in 34.332. Haberfeld, Jimmy Vasser. Haberfeld away in 36, as near as damn it.
Oop.
And
Darren Manning's car.
That is Darren Manning's car, and the word is he's lost a gear. Can't launch from the pit area.
Gearbox or clutch problem.
Well, that's a real shame. He was doing so well, and just as we started to talk him up as a top 5er, he's let down by the mechanics. The mechanicals, I should say. Would hate to get on the wrong side of the mechanics.
They get home safely tonight.
Darren Manning in trouble, lost a gear, we think. Paul Tracy out in front, ahead of Jourdain, Junqueira, Haberfeld. Montero there in that 5th spot, ahead of Jimmy Vasser, Moreno, and Darren Manning is in the pit and looking like staying there for the time being, which is a real shame. He'd been driving beautifully.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I think he deserved a top 6 finish. He would, pretty impressive.
Certainly would have been. He impressed on his debut, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Rocking him last year, he did very, very well. Like I said before, I think that's what secured him, or not secured him the drive, but certainly got him taken seriously by one or two of the teams. And he's ended up with a competitive seat this year.
Not lacking in confidence, is he?
No.
And we like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, for a British sportsman, that can sometimes be quite unusual, so it's quite refreshing. But I know Darren reasonably well, and I'm pleased for him to be up there.
We're all pleased for him. Great to see a Brit as part of this truly international series. And once again, just looking on one of the more complex little areas of this one, Michael Jourdain Jr. And here we are with Junqueira. Lap 79, they've had their final stop, the leaders. And the heat just getting back into those tyres for you. Junqueira 7.34 seconds down on the leader, who is Paul Tracy, who has just carried himself very well indeed. Responded perfectly to orders, often in the past. I saw a little twitch there.
Jourdain was well crossed up there, yeah.
He certainly was. Yes, Tracy has been known to react robustly to team orders, but is in a very comfortable position here, and is certainly a man to follow them. Called in beautifully. It was a very smooth pit stop. Not sure how much fuel they got on board, but it's certainly enough to carry him right to the end. No risk strategy here, no need for any risk to be taken. That said, they are racing hard further down the line, and Junqueira would really love to get past here, wouldn't he, into second spot?
He would, yeah, but I don't think he looks quite quick enough. It's not like he's hassling particularly. He's consistently a second or so behind, but never ever close enough to say you could say he's being held up. I think they're running a very similar pace, aren't they?
Explain the difference between Junqueira and Bourdais, with essentially the same teams and the same information. Apparently Bourdais is quite happy to share.
Yeah, I mean, different drivers behave in different ways. Personally, I was always quite happy to share when I was a driver. Never saw a problem. And to be fair, most of my teammates were. I don't recall ever having a position where a teammate wasn't happy to share information, but they do exist. There are drivers out there that want to keep everything to themselves.
Go on. Who?
Off the top of my head, I know there was a time Michael Schumacher. I don't know whether that applies right now with Barrichello as a teammate, but I think when Eddie Irvine was his teammate at Ferrari, Irvine used to have great difficulty in accessing information.
Even the odd wheel.
Yeah. But I don't know whether it. I think most drivers are quite happy to share. I don't know. Are you saying Junqueira, doesn't share, or?
No, not at all. It's just that Sébastien Bourdais has been almost heralded by Newman House as being somebody who is an open book, basically.
Yeah.
And so much so that he's gone even beyond the sort of gentlemanly sharing. Sort of perhaps they thought that maybe language difficulties, that sort of thing, but he's effectively writing a setup book as he goes, and they're delighted with him.
Interesting to see different approaches, different drivers.
Lap 81 here at St. Petersburg, and just picking our way through there along the top of your screens and looking at some of the times, and they've barely shifted, I have to say, from the beginning of this one. And yes, Darren Manning has indeed got gearbox problems and is out, which is a real shame.
It is a shame. But early days, long way to go yet, so Haberfeld, isn't it?
Cool, and just managed to hold on to that one, and nearly got his back sorted out. Goodness gracious.
That's poor driving. You should be hauled in front of the stewards for that. You don't do that.
May well be. Let's take a look. Haberfeld, remember, is already on a couple of warnings for blocking.
That's Formula 4 tactics. That's totally unnecessary.
Well, if he isn't chastened by the officials, he certainly has been by Mr. Gowsbury's. Because watching this on replay,
and that was me being restrained.
It certainly was. If you could just see him tearing up his notes here, you'd understand the adrenaline which is pumping through his veins. Understandably too, as well. I mean, it was very slack that he was forgetting the safety and just trying to hold on to position, which wasn't rightly his after that mistake.
I mean, by all means, I like to think when I was racing that there was no one harder than me. I used to be hard, and they wouldn't take any prisoners. But there is a distinction between being hard and being stupid and dirty. And I never was stupid and dirty. And you can be one without being the other. And that was just an example of a stupid, dirty piece of driving.
Mario Haberfeld, you have been told he is under a couple of warnings, and I'm surprised he's not having another one.
That should have been it. Yeah, that should have been. If he's had 2 warnings already, then he should have been hauled in now and penalised in some way.
Yeah, well, stop-goes are part of the order book, but certainly not this time. He seems to have got away with it.
Well, I mean, that's one of the advantages of having a driver as a steward, in that they're able to sort of differentiate between what is a genuine error and what is a malicious piece of driving, and that was the latter and should have been punished.
Well, luck as well playing a part here, and not having buckets full of it. Oriol Servia, who was one of the leading lights in terms of the qualifiers, he has still got mechanical problems and is heading back to the pits for the 7th time. That's a shame.
Treat it as a test session, isn't it?
Well, Montero is also being coached by Mr. Fittipaldi. We doff our caps to him.
Not much have a better coach than that around, I think.
Definitely not. And
super experience.
Lately coming together as well, that team. One of the late entries for here, and all sorts of difficulties without that nice lead in.
Yeah, I mean, he's been competitive all afternoon, to be fair. He's been right up there. I mean, he qualified quite a well off the pace. But they obviously arrived at a good setup for the race, and he's been up there all weekend, all afternoon.
Well, what a nice thing to have someone such as Emerson on board to help you through those trials and tribulations of getting to learn a car quickly, and certainly seems to have done. And if you think about that, you know, the amount of lead-in time that they've had, it has been an outstanding performance.
Yeah, it has.
Still on board with Bruno Junqueira, not our leader, but one of the leading lights here. We will be back for the remainder of this race after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back on board with Paul Tracy, our leader here, as he has been for so much of this race. So 1:04.951. Jourdain and Junqueira both closing on him, as is Haberfeld for the time being. But as soon as he gets a sniff of that, then you can be sure he will just wind it out again. Just perhaps, conserving himself. Conserving his fuel.
Absolutely. And his tyres and himself, really. There's no need to push to the max. He's got a reasonably comfortable cushion to the pack behind. And he's if you push too hard, you risk sticking it in the wall. So it's Darren Manning.
Just can't quite pick him up, actually.
A bit of a shame, because we were right up in 6th or 7th place, and I think with the pit stop strategy we probably would have ended up coming out in 5th, and the car was really good in the first.
Well, that's a shame we didn't quite get that. He was basically saying the car was very, very good.
It was, but I think I heard him say the clutch was what failed.
Right.
It was a clutch.
Shame we couldn't get the mic up properly there for you. I don't know whether you managed to catch that back at home, but Darren Manning looking reasonably chipper, considering what must have been a great disappointment to him, as he was driving so very well.
Yeah, well, like you said, they worked their pit stop strategy out, so he would have come out in 5th place. So I think he was looking strong for a top 5, top 6 position. So he knows he was on for a good finish. Did a good job this afternoon.
Oh, one way and then the next, and well held, sir. And that was somebody, just as Paul Tracy was easing off. We saw on the times, didn't we, just what the difference was. And Junqueira really don't quite know what to say, actually, because he really did take that very
ragged
close.
the last. He's obviously pushing really hard to keep up with Jourdain, and just overcooked it there. Just threw a little chicane before the last corner.
Well, nearly saw the rear end coming round. Thankfully held on. And we'll just see how much further back he dropped. Paul Tracy 1:02. Junqueira, just slightly off the pace with that, and hardly surprising, just dropping a couple of seconds. But a nasty moment for the man who was talked up as being, well, one of the big favourites here for this season. Seems to have perhaps just gone off the ball slightly, but it's an awfully long season.
Oh yeah.
And we are going to all sorts of tracks here at Champ Car. The lovely thing about it is, of course, it is so mixed.
What, the mix of circuits?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's one of the great advantages it has over IRL, is the mixture of circuits, and also the fact it visits different countries as well, whereas IRL is purely based in the States.
And if you happen to be diary to hand, May the 5th, Brands Hatch. Is certainly one to note. They're all saying they're absolutely looking forward to it, although with trepidation. Darren Manning just really wants to shine there, as you'd expect.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I think if Darren can get a good result there, that'll do an awful lot for his profile in Britain and Europe.
On board with Paul Tracy again, a man who has been, well, it's hard to say carrying the series because it is very robust, and Chris Book has done a fabulous job in keeping this one alive. Pumped real lifeblood into it last year, and the deal with Ford to get this control engine that they're carrying this year really was a masterstroke.
Yeah, well, like we said earlier, it cost them, it saved the teams money in some cases, but it also cost some teams money. Those who had engines from Toyota and Honda were actually getting paid to run those engines, and when those deals went, because it became a one-engine formula, they were encouraged to look elsewhere and went to IRL in many cases. So it probably cost them a couple of teams, but I think for the long-term security of the series, it was the right thing to do.
Well, the idea is a long-term strategy, according to Mr. Pook. The idea, English-born, incidentally.
Yeah.
The idea is that by 2005, that it'll be in a strong footing as a series to be carried a quantum leap forward. And he certainly has got a fantastic series of races this season. Monterey next up, and then Long Beach. There are, needless to say, a few ovals on board. Fontana is the season ender. Milwaukee, and if you count the Lausitzring in Germany as an oval, there as well. No longer going to Rockingham this time around. No,
which is a shame for British fans. There's nothing quite like seeing a champ car on an oval, particularly a super speedway. I like you mentioned Fontana. That seeing a champ car there is eye-wateringly impressive. And stand up the last turn, exit the last turn. It's got an eye-opener.
And an eye-opener here as well, as Paul Tracy not setting the fastest times the last couple of laps, but has just thrown in a 1:03.412, and just by way of just reminding us who is boss. Some of those midfield though, look at that, Moreno, 1:03.609, that's a fantastic effort by him.
Yeah, I mean, he's an awful lot quicker than the cars around him. Bourdais done a 33.4, so he's competitive as well at the moment, he's flying through.
It's a case of just what may have been with Bourdais, lack of experience, perhaps leaving him a little bit less focused than he had been. Maybe he was cursing himself for not having made that first fuel stop, and then just let his naturally excellent concentration just slip a little bit, and he was into the wall, rear end damage, and effectively over for the day.
Yeah, it's easily done.
Tracy through traffic, I was just about to say smoothly, and he was quite fortunate there that finally the man saw him and let him go.
It's always a bit hard on a mouth moment when you come off on a back marker with only a few laps in the race left and you're leading comfortably.
Lap 94, 106 is scheduled, and it's our old friend Montero is in. That's why he was flying. He was light on fuel load, and he is in. Fittipaldi, Dingman Racing here. And as we said, did very, very well indeed to get themselves set up and running so quickly. Yes, Emerson Fittipaldi and James Dingman on board. Some crossovers, not just in terms of drivers, but other expertise coming in from Formula 3000 here.
Yeah, one notable one is Haberfeld's team. The team manager there is Chris Mower. And Chris was, his father owned, because it's now closed, but Nordic Racing in Formula 3000, who Mario Haberfeld used to drive for.
Nordic Racing, one of the leading lights.
Yeah, they were.
Picked up that lovely bit of sponsorship from Coca-Cola.
They did.
Surprised to see them checking out of it.
Yeah, I think Derek got to a point where he had you know, he's been in motor racing for years and years and years. Just got to the point where it was time to call it a day and go into retirement.
No such thoughts here, and Bruno Junqueira, some veterans on board here. Junqueira, of course, not regarded as one of them. Certainly one of those pushing very, very hard indeed through these back markers as more pit strategy starts to unwind. These must have been out of sequence.
Yeah, out of sequence, or like you said before, just try to run with just a little bit too little amount of fuel and realise I'm not going to get away with it.
Well, this is indeed Sebastian Bourdais, who finds himself a couple of laps down. He's just out of the points for the time being, but we'll get a position on him as he comes out and crosses the line next time around. Tracy, Jourdain, Junqueira, it's starting to sound very, very familiar, the leading trio. What might have been if Bourdais had been a little bit luckier perhaps, and with a little bit more experience on board, I'm sure. Wow, nearly took the nose away there from Jimmy Vasser. And Vasser going very slow indeed. Has he just pitted?
Well, that one's recovering from a moment, I'm not sure. Seems okay now.
Yes, not on the metal, certainly. Looking sluggish. See if he comes in just a few moments. Camera's staying with him for the time being. American Spirit desperate to keep a high American profile here, with leading lights such as Paul Tracy and Carpentier. A couple of Canadians, all-Canadian team. And the Americans, they really have started to rebuild their profile, haven't they, in the top draw of motorsport?
Yeah, I mean, there's two very competitive championships, this and IRL, and gets good publicity in the States. And sorry, in Europe rather, should I say? It really is quite popular with European race fans.
Team manager Rob Hill of the American Spirit team Johansson, Stefan Johansson, of course, well known to us viewers on Eurosport.
Well, Stefan was obviously a top Formula 1 driver for quite some time, and then came over to America and was an IndyCar driver, then started his own team in Indy Lights. He's now progressed to Champ Cars. He's been busy. And still races himself, still does sports cars.
Here does racing, number 4, Roberto Moreno. Roberto, during spring testing, was very kind to us as a Eurosport crew when we went over there. Actually talked us right the way through his vehicle. There was absolutely nothing covered up, with a couple of secret little things, of course, with the odd rag here and there, strategically placed. But nonetheless, you know, it was very, very refreshing, and so very different from the world of Formula 1.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's so much more open, which I think is a good thing. I think the organisers seem to understand that it's what the sponsors and what the spectators and fans want. With F1, everything's so enclosed and hard to access and very secretive that it kind of makes it hard to sort of feel part of it, really.
And Chris Book really has sorted that side of things out, as we just come up to the 100 lap mark. That'll be 6 to go on board here with Roberto Moreno. Yes, it's a very open access philosophy. The drivers are there for signing autographs almost permanently, sees when they're out of the car, and happy to do so.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to a Champ Car paddock, it's not like Formula 1 where everything's ring fenced off, you can't get in or even get close to the drivers, which the fans obviously want to do. You know, the drivers mingle, and quite happily it's easy to get near their motorhomes and walk between the motorhomes to see the drivers and stop the photographs. But I think one of the big things for fans with the Champ Car series is access to the radio transcripts, and so you know exactly what's going on. We haven't had any live broadcasts with this race, but often you actually hear what's being said, whereas in F1 that would never happen.
Absolutely. Yes, the race radio there, and you can often pick up little tidbits, as we have been throughout this one, on board with Paul Tracy here, and they were calling him in and telling him to speed up, and it all adds to the excitement of the whole thing. And race radio, of course, at each one of these events keeping people in touch, and it's nice to see, getting people closer to the action. And these onboard shots are absolutely fabulous.
They are good, aren't they? Yeah. Which, I mean, Formula 1 has learned a lot from American racing. American racing was the first to go with a sort of backward-facing camera and all these different angles that really just bring you close to what's going on.
Incidentally, they once hired, I believe it was in NASCAR, they hired the world champion remote control helicopter operator.
Yeah.
And stuck a camera on there and flew it round to one of the starts.
That's right, they did, didn't they?
And apparently they couldn't get insurance and it had to stop, just in case this thing let go.
Yeah.
And down it came. So you can understand that. Safety, but I tell you, those pictures were absolutely outstanding. Flying alongside the late Dale Earnhardt, etc. Fabulous stuff.
Yeah.
But you can just go a little bit too far on this nerdy cam stuff. But here we're happy to be on board with Paul Tracy as we come to the last 5 laps of this one. The opener here at St. Petersburg of what is a very, very busy Champ Car season. Take an awful lot to put this together, and when it comes to a circuit near you, get along and enjoy. The noise is absolutely outstanding. The atmosphere incredible, friendly and dynamic in equal buckets, and a whole host of stars, not least amongst them Paul Tracy. And we're glad to hold on to him, and Paul Tracy is holding on to this lead very, very beautifully indeed. 4 to go, and already they're waving at him from the stands. Clear water, it seems, in front of him. Well, Tracy has had his moments here. Lost a couple of seconds a couple of laps ago. Just looking at some of the lap times. Actually had a moment while we were with somebody else. May well just have got stuck behind traffic.
That's one of the hard things as a racing driver when you are this far in front. When you've got 20-25 laps left in a race, the hard thing is to keep that momentum going, just get a rhythm.
Well, he really has been like a metronome.
Yeah, that's what you have to be. But obviously, we do have a little moment. It can be terminal. But what it can do is bring you back to concentration again.
Wake you up.
Shot across your bows, yeah.
Like a cigarette stubbed out on the back of your neck.
Something like that, yeah.
Ouch, and you're underway again.
But the rhythm's the important thing, just get into a rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Break at the same point, trot at the same point. Same line, lap after lap.
Well, he's been doing this for some time, and
yeah, as someone of his experience should not have a problem with it.
Caught himself just getting a little bit low physically a couple of years ago. Lost a good deal of weight, and has really been right back on it, hasn't he, since then?
Yeah, I mean, he's always been competitive, really, isn't he? I don't recall him ever being off the pace for a prolonged period of time.
Despite his extra kilos, he certainly shed those, and
yeah,
I believe that was his mum, by the way,
yeah.
In case you were wondering. Coming round once again, and just ticking down. 106 laps in the offing, 2 to go. It'll be the white flag next time around. Tracy leading ahead of Jourdain Jr. Junqueira wearing the number 1, and since his little twitch, he seems to have settled down for that podium place.
Yeah, I think Jourdain will walk away from the weekend kicking himself, obviously, but he'd have learned an awful lot and made a good impression.
Certainly in qualification there, he was way up there, and
yeah.
It was just a question of strategy and what seemed to us certainly to be a simple error. I can't really believe that the team told him to stay out.
No, I don't think so either. I think it was probably a mistake. And it'll all come out in the wash, but I think it was probably a simple mistake, and something they'll all learn from.
Staying with our leader then. Been a good few handful of yellows, taking the white flag. 1 to go then for Paul Tracy.
Nervous looking mum.
Yeah, I think she's doing the owl calls, which are her signature. Well, maybe not. Paul Tracy then, carrying this race through towards the end beautifully. Remaining focused right the way throughout, and it'll be a great start for the Players Forsyth Racing team. Patrick Carpentier, of course, not delivering the goods entirely. Little mistake by him. Saw him with some nose damage earlier on. Nonetheless, he is still in there racing and in the points in 8th spot. Final lap then, and Paul Tracy coming past and remaining focused, not even giving himself a time for a wave at the grandstand as he goes past there, down on the inside, and just lazily almost bringing his baby home. Tracy takes it. Mum's happy. What more could you want? Well, a very, very measured performance by Paul Tracy. In the end, as he does the donuts, it wasn't required. The battle wasn't there with Bourdais that we've been expecting. But nonetheless, a spectacle it turned out to be here in St. Petersburg. Paul Tracy taking it, Michael Jourdain Jr. in second place ahead of Bruno Junqueira. They holding position towards the end of this one. Never really in doubt, provided they all just nursed the cars home.
Yeah.
That's the way it was going to finish. But an enjoyable day, to say the least, here.
I'm looking forward to Tracy and Bourdais on a few scraps in the future.
Certainly, and some rare old scraps that have been right the way down the line here. Mario Haberfeld, a quick look at him, and we had some rude words for Mario Haberfeld. Maybe he's got something to learn as well, and Roberto Moreno, fellow Brazilian, perhaps just starting a count up there. Fantastic stuff. And we already have Paul Tracy with us for a brief word.
What a start, Paul, to come with a new team. Paul, and to have a day like this as the start.
It's a great start for the season for the whole team players. And I really got to thank the team. We had to work hard this week and really had to rely on Pat's side to help with our starting setup. So it's it's where we wanted to start the season. It's where I wanted to start the season, and I can't be any happier.
Paul, you mentioned yesterday this car was fast on old tires. Did that play out and become an advantage for you?
I think so. I think in the middle part when I kind of let Michel catch me to kind of give him a little glimmer of hope, and then once I realized I got it within 4 seconds, then I was able to just pull away from him and pull out to 10. So the car handled great all weekend. I got to thank Tony Sakali. I got to thank my crew. They did a great job on the pit stops, and it's great to be back in the winner's circle.
Virtually.
Great indeed to see Paul Tracy, one of the biggest stars in motorsport in the United States, taking this one, the opener of this Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car Series, powered by Ford. Bit of a mouthful, the Champ Car World Series to you and me. Paul Tracy finishing ahead of Michael Jourdain Jr. Bruno Junqueira wearing the number 1, finishing in 3rd place. And as we pick our way back through the points there, Darren Manning, sad for him to be out of it. Oriol Servia getting the last point, and Sébastien Bourdais, so much promise from the young French rookie. In the end, a lack of judgment on two occasions during this race has seen him in the points, but certainly not as high as we had expected. So finishes like this: Paul Tracy 21 points, Michael Jourdain Jr. in there as well on 16, and picking away down as you'd expect. Eurosport will be live throughout this season, and if not, you'll be able to see the entire race slightly delayed. It's been a pleasure to have your company. Gareth, your thoughts briefly?
Yeah, I think it was a shame we were robbed of the chance to see the fight between Bourdais and Tracy. I think it would have been an interesting race to see those two going at it. But I think Tracy, after Bourdais went out, Tracy was certainly well superior.
So a fantastic race here at St. Petersburg in Florida. The weather was perfect, the racing exciting, very, very mixed results from one and all, but Paul Tracy is out here as the victor. From me, Carlton Kirby, and Gareth Rees, thanks for your company. Bye-bye.